Hello and welcome. This is a simplified version of Treasure Island, a famous pirate adventure written by Robert Louis Stevenson in 1883. The story has been lightly shortened and rewritten using simple English, so it's easier for people who are learning the language. Every important event, character, and twist is still here, but the vocabulary and grammar are made clearer. You will follow young Jim Hawkins as he finds a treasure map, sails across the sea, and faces danger from pirates, especially the clever and dangerous Long John Silver. Are you ready for treasure, storms, battles, and mystery? Then let's begin. Treasure Island. By Robert Louis Stevenson, Simplified English Version. Chapter 1, The Old Sea Dog at the Admiral Benbow. Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and other gentlemen have asked me to write down everything about Treasure Island. I, Jim Hawkins, will tell you the whole story, from beginning to end. I will keep nothing secret, except the location of the island, because there is still treasure hidden there. It all began when I was a boy. My father owned a small inn called the Admiral Benbow. It was on the coast, far from the town. I helped my mother and father with the work at the inn. One cold day, a man came to the door. He was tall and strong, with a brown face and old, dirty sea clothes. His hands were rough and scarred, and across one cheek was a big white scar. He pulled a heavy sea chest behind him on a small cart. He looked at the inn, then at the sea. Then he said, "This is a good place. Yes, this is the right place for me." He walked in with his chest and asked for a room. My father came to talk to him. "How long will you be staying?" my father asked. "I'll stay here a long time," said the man. "I like a quiet place." Then he threw some gold coins on the table. "That should pay for a week," he said. "Call me Captain." We didn't know his real name. He didn't tell us, and we didn't ask. He said very little. He asked me to help him. He offered me a silver coin each month if I watched the coast road and told him if I saw a sailor with one leg. "When you see a man with one leg," he said, "you tell me, quick." I agreed, and I watched. But no sailor with one leg ever came. The captain stayed for many weeks. Every day, he walked along the cliffs with a brass telescope. He wore the same old coat and never changed his clothes. When he came back to the inn, he sat in the parlor by the fire, drank rum, and said very little. He didn't talk to the other guests. They were afraid of him. When he drank too much rum, he became loud and angry. He sang a terrible sea song in a high, rough voice. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. He sang that song over and over until everyone was tired of it. The captain told stories when he drank a lot. He told me about terrible storms, wild islands, and pirates. He talked about Captain Flint, a great pirate who buried a lot of treasure. The captain said he had sailed with Flint. That frightened me, but also excited me. Sometimes the captain would leave the inn for a whole day. But he always came back. He paid his rent each month in gold coins, though we noticed he often searched his pockets carefully, like he was afraid of running out of money. As time passed, my father became sick. He was very ill for many weeks. During that time, the captain became more nervous. He stayed in his room and drank even more rum. He didn't talk to anyone, and he became even more silent and angry than before. He still asked me to watch the road for a man with one leg. Every time I looked nervous, he would say, "Remember, boy. One leg. You'll know him when you see him." One day, during my father's illness, something happened that changed everything. It was early in the day, and the captain was outside walking on the cliffs with his telescope. I was working near the front of the inn when I saw a man walking up the road. He was a sailor too, but very different from the captain. He was a short man, fat and heavy. His face was dark and unhealthy looking, like he had a hard life. He wore a long, dirty coat, and his sword hung under it. He looked around nervously and spoke in a sharp, cold voice. "Is this the Admiral Benbow Inn?" "Yes, sir," I said. "Do many people stay here?" "No, sir. Only one guest right now, an old sailor." At this, the man gave a strange smile. "An old sailor? Does he have a scar on his cheek?" "Yes, sir." Now the man's eyes became sharper. "Is he tall? Strong? Walks with a limp? Looks like a captain?" "Yes, sir," I said. "He calls himself the captain." The man smiled wider. "That's him," he said. "Is he here now?" No, sir. He's out walking. Well then, boy, I'll wait. You've got rum, I hope. I brought him a mug of rum and led him into the parlor. He sat down at the table and told me to stay near the door. He wanted me to call him when the captain came back. So I watched out the window. After a few minutes, I saw the captain walking back toward the inn. I told the man. He stood up right away. Now, boy, he said, and pulled me close by the arm. You'll say nothing, understand? Or you'll regret it. He let me go and moved to the door of the parlor, waiting. The captain walked into the inn as usual. But when he saw the man waiting for him, he stopped dead. His face changed from brown to white. You, he said. Yes, Billy. It's me, Black Dog, said the man. What do you want? Asked the captain. Just to talk, Billy. Only a friendly talk, that's all. They walked into the parlor together and shut the door. I didn't hear their words clearly, but the captain's voice rose several times in anger, and once I heard Black Dog say, No, no, no. That's not true, Billy. There was the sound of fists hitting the table, then chairs moving, and suddenly a crash. I ran to the door. Inside, the captain stood with a drawn cutlass, a sailor's sword. Black Dog was already halfway out the door, holding his bleeding shoulder. He ran out into the road and disappeared down the hill. Jim, the captain shouted. Rum. I brought him the bottle of rum, but his hands were shaking so badly, he could barely hold it. Did you know that man, Jim? He asked. No, sir, I said. He's after me. That was Black Dog, a sailor from Flint's old crew. He sat down heavily. They've found me at last. I knew they would. But I won't give up my sea chest. Let them try. Then suddenly, the captain gave a loud cry, dropped the rum bottle, and fell to the floor. Chapter 2, Black Dog appears and disappears. The captain had fallen to the ground. My mother and I were very worried. We thought he was dead. But after a minute or two, he started to move. His eyes opened, and he tried to sit up. He was very weak, but alive. My father was still very ill, so I ran to get help. The closest person I could think of was Dr. Livesey, the local doctor and also the judge of our village. He was a serious, clever man who always stayed calm, no matter what happened. Dr. Livesey came at once. When he saw the captain lying on the floor, he knelt beside him and listened to his heart. He has had a stroke, said the doctor. He must rest, or he will die. Then the captain opened his eyes. Where's Black Dog? He asked in a whisper. There's no Black Dog here, said the doctor. You had a stroke. If you don't stop drinking rum, you will have another, and you won't live through the next one. The captain didn't answer. He closed his eyes again. Dr. Livesey stood up and turned to me. Jim, he said, you must keep him in bed. No rum. Give him food and this medicine. If he follows my instructions, he may recover. So we did what the doctor said. The captain stayed in bed and was quiet for a few days. But as soon as he started to feel better, he began asking for rum again. Just one glass, Jim, he would say. I needed to feel strong again. I refused. He became angry and shouted, but I didn't give in. After a while, he gave up and stayed quiet. But I could see that he was becoming more nervous each day. He watched the windows. He listened for sounds outside. He often asked me if I had seen the sailor with one leg. They're coming, Jim, he said one evening. I know they're coming for me. I asked him who they were, but he didn't explain. One cold January morning, my father died. We were very sad, but we still had to keep the inn running. My mother and I worked hard, and the captain stayed in his room, mostly silent. Then, one afternoon, I saw a strange man coming up the road. He wore a long dark coat and walked with a stick. At first, I didn't notice anything unusual. But when he came closer, I saw that he was blind. His eyes were white and milky, and he moved his stick from side to side as he walked. He walked slowly, tapping the road with his stick. He came straight up to me and stopped right in front of me. Boy, he said in a cold, sharp voice. Do you know your left hand from your right? Yes, sir, I said. Good. Now take my left hand and lead me inside. Take me to the captain. Be quick, boy. And if you lie, or play tricks, I'll break your arm. He squeezed my arm hard as he spoke. I was so afraid, I said nothing and obeyed at once. I led him into the inn and toward the captain's room. When we got to the door, the blind man pushed me aside and stepped into the room. "Now, Bill," he said. "Sit still, mate. I've got something for you from your old friends." I heard the captain gasp. Then I saw the blind man grab the captain's hand and press something into his palm. "Now it's done," said the blind man. "We'll see you tonight, Bill." Then he turned and quickly left the inn, walking as fast as his stick could guide him. I ran into the room. The captain was staring at the thing in his hand. It was a small round piece of black paper. On one side, there was a message: "You have until 10 o'clock. The captain let out a terrible cry. "It's the black spot, Jim. That means judgment. That means they're coming for me at 10. His face was white. He tried to stand up, but he was shaking too much. "They want my sea chest," he said. "Well, they won't get it. Not if I can help it." He took one step toward the door, then grabbed his chest. His face twisted in pain. He fell again, and this time, he didn't move. I ran to him, but it was too late. The captain was dead. Chapter 3, The Black Spot. Now that the captain was dead, I stood in his room for a long time. I didn't know what to do. My mother was still busy with the guests downstairs, and no one else knew what had just happened. I ran to tell her. When I explained that the captain was dead, and that strange, dangerous men were coming for his sea chest, she turned pale. "Jim," she said, "we must get help right away." We walked quickly to the village, but it was very late. Most people were already asleep. We knocked on doors and told the story, but the people were afraid. They didn't want to get involved with pirates. One man agreed to come back with us. He was a servant who had a small gun. That was all the help we could find. On the way back to the inn, my mother said, "He owed us money. We gave him food and a bed for months. I will take only what he owed us, nothing more." When we reached the inn, everything was quiet. We quickly entered the captain's room and found the key to his sea chest in his coat pocket. The chest was large and heavy. We opened it. Inside, there were old clothes, a small compass, a few strange shells, a telescope, a pouch filled with gold coins from different countries, a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. It looked like papers. My mother took some coins from the pouch. She counted carefully. "That's all he owed," she said. "I won't take a penny more." But just as she finished, we heard a sound outside, several footsteps. They were coming fast. We heard a tap tap tap, the sound of a stick on the road. "It's the blind man," I whispered. We blew out the candle and ran out the back door. My mother was very frightened and nearly fainted. I helped her hide under a small bridge not far from the inn. I told her to stay quiet. Then I crawled back toward the inn to watch. From behind a wall, I could see several men walking quickly toward the door. Some were carrying weapons, cutlasses, clubs, and pistols. One of them was the blind man, moving fast with his stick. They reached the door and tried to open it. "Locked," said one. "Break it down," said another. With a crash, they broke into the inn. I heard them go into the captain's room. "The chest is open," someone shouted. "The gold is gone," yelled another. "Where's the map?" screamed the blind man. "Find the boy, find the map." They ran through the inn, searching every room. Suddenly, I heard the sound of horses. A group of riders from the village was coming, carrying torches and guns. "Run," someone shouted from inside the inn. The pirates began to flee. Some ran into the woods. Others jumped over fences. I saw one man, big and clumsy, fall in the road. It was the blind man. He tried to stand, but one of the horses knocked into him. He gave a terrible cry, and then lay still. He was dead. The villagers chased the others, but most got away in the darkness. Soon everything was quiet again. I returned to my mother. She was cold and frightened, but alive. We went back to the inn with the village men. Everything inside was broken and torn. Chairs smashed, drawers pulled open, the captain's chest overturned. But they had not found what they really wanted. The bundle of papers, the map, was safe in my coat. Chapter 4, The Sea Chest. The next morning, I went to see Dr. Livesey. He was at the house of Squire Trelawney, a rich man who lived nearby. When I arrived, both men were having breakfast. Dr. Livesey looked up. "Jim," he said. "What's wrong? You look tired." I told them everything, how the captain had died, how the blind man came, how the pirates broke into the inn, and how I had hidden the bundle of papers. They listened carefully. When I finished, Squire Trelawney stood up and shouted. "Flint's men! Pirates! I knew it. We must act at once." Dr. Livesey nodded. "First, let's look at these papers," he said. I handed him the bundle. It was wrapped in oilcloth and tied with string. He opened it carefully. Inside were two things. A notebook, old and full of names and numbers. A map, yellow with age, with drawings and words written in red ink. They read the notebook first. It showed a list of places, ship names, and amounts of gold, silver, and jewels. Some names were crossed out. It was clear, this was Captain Flint's account book, a list of all the treasure he had stolen over many years. Then they looked at the map. It showed an island shaped like a dragon, with hills, trees, rivers, and caves. Near the center, in red ink, were the words. "Treasure is buried here. Find the tall tree on the hill. Follow the line from the rock to the small river. The treasure is below. J.F." Underneath was a drawing of a compass rose and some numbers, directions and distances. Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney looked at each other. "It's real," said the doctor. "Real?" shouted the squire. "This is the greatest discovery of the century. We'll go at once. We'll buy a ship, find a crew, and sail to the island." "We must be careful," said the doctor. "Remember, the men who want this map are pirates. Flint's crew may still be alive." "Then we'll keep it secret," said Trelawney. "We won't tell anyone what we're really doing." He turned to me. "Jim, you're coming too. You found the map, and I know you'll be useful." I felt a great excitement rise in my chest. I was only a boy, but now I was part of a great adventure. "Doctor, you'll be ship's doctor," the squire continued. "And I will be commander." Dr. Livesey smiled. "Agreed. Let's do this right." So that day, they began to plan everything. Squire Trelawney would go to the port city of Bristol to buy a ship and hire sailors. Dr. Livesey would stay behind to prepare medicines and supplies. And I, Jim Hawkins, would wait for the word to begin the voyage to Treasure Island. Chapter 5, The Last of the Blind Man. Back at the Admiral Benbow Inn, things were quiet again, but the house was a mess. The furniture was broken, the captain's room was in pieces, and the doors were damaged. But the bundle with the treasure map was safe, and the danger, for now, was gone. The next day, officers from the nearest town arrived. They came on horseback with weapons. When we told them everything, they helped clean the inn and repair the damage. They also found the body of the blind man, lying in the road where the horse had knocked him down. "Who was he?" the officer asked me. "His name was Pugh," I said. "A terrible man. He threatened me. He was the leader of the group." They searched his pockets. He had a small knife, a few coins, and nothing more. No one was sad to see him dead. The officer said. "He must have been a criminal for many years. He was fast and dangerous for a blind man. We'll bury him quietly." The other pirates had all escaped. Some people thought they went back to the coast and took a small boat. But no one knew for sure. What mattered was that we were safe, and the map was now in good hands. Later that week, Dr. Livesey, Squire Trelawney, and I sat in the parlor to make final plans. "Squire," said the doctor, "you must go to Bristol at once." "Yes," said Trelawney. "I'll find a good ship, a strong crew, and a clever captain. But I'll say nothing about treasure. If people know, we may attract pirates." "Good idea," said the doctor. "This must stay secret. Even one wrong word, and Flint's old crew might appear again." Trelawney turned to me. "Jim, you're coming with me. You're part of this. You found the map." I nodded, proud and excited. "Doctor," said the squire, "when the ship is ready, I'll send you a letter. Come to Bristol with supplies, and we'll sail." "Agreed," said Livesey. "But be careful whom you trust." And so, the great adventure truly began. Squire Trelawney left for Bristol that very week, carrying the map in a locked case. Dr. Livesey stayed in the village to care for his patients, and to prepare medicines for the journey. I stayed at the inn, helping my mother and waiting for news. I couldn't stop thinking about the map, the gold, and the strange island drawn in red ink. Treasure Island. The words echoed in my mind. Chapter 6, The Captain's Papers. After Squire Trelawney left for Bristol, Dr. Livesey and I spent more time studying the things we found in the old sea chest. The notebook we took from the captain's chest was full of numbers, names, and dates. It showed how much money Captain Flint had stolen during his life of piracy. There were lists of ships he attacked, treasures taken, and names of the men in his crew. Many of the names were marked with notes like, "Dead," "Hanged," "Left in Madagascar." It was clear that Flint had a very dangerous life, and most of his men had either died or disappeared. There were also notes about where the treasure came from Spanish ships, from islands in the Caribbean, from merchant vessels carrying gold and silver. There was a list of the contents of the treasure that had been buried. 700,000 British pounds in gold and silver coins. Bars of gold. Jewels, emeralds, diamonds, rubies. Fine silk, weapons, and other expensive items. This was a huge fortune, enough to make every man on the ship rich for life. The most important part, of course, was the map. We looked at it again and again. The island was drawn clearly, with mountains, rivers, forests, and a large hill called the Spyglass in the center. Near that hill, a red X marked the spot where the treasure was hidden. On the back of the map, in Flint's handwriting, were instructions. Start at the tall tree on the Spyglass Hill. Go 10 steps east, 20 north, then follow the stream south 50 steps. Dig under the flat stone with the mark. Dr. Livesey said. There's no doubt. It's real. This is a true pirate map. Flint must have trusted Billy Bones enough to keep it hidden, but now it's in our hands. I asked. Do you think the pirates will come back? The doctor shook his head. They don't know we have the map. And they lost their leader, Pew. Still, we must be careful. If they find out about our trip, they may follow. A few weeks later, a letter came from Bristol. It was from Squire Trelawney. Here's what he wrote, in simple words. Dear Livesey, I have found the perfect ship. She is called the Hispaniola, and she is fast and strong. I've also hired a fine crew. Most of them are honest seamen, and I've found a cook, a man named Long John Silver. He lost a leg in battle but is smart, brave, and respected by all the sailors. He helped me find good men for the voyage. The ship is ready. Come to Bristol with Jim as soon as possible. We sail in a few days. Yours, Squire Trelawney. Dr. Livesey read the letter and looked at me. Well, Jim, it's time. Pack your things. We're going on a sea voyage, to Treasure Island. Chapter 7, I Go to Bristol. I was so excited I could barely sleep. The next morning, I said goodbye to my mother and the Admiral Benbow Inn, and began my journey with Dr. Livesey. We traveled by carriage across hills and valleys, passing small villages and farms, until we reached the big port city of Bristol. I had never seen a city so large. The streets were full of people, sailors, merchants, carts, and horses. The harbor was full of ships, and the smell of the sea was strong in the air. We went straight to the tavern where Squire Trelawney was staying. He welcomed us warmly. Livesey. Jim. You're here at last, he said. The ship is ready, the crew is aboard, and we sail in 3 days. He was full of energy and joy, like a boy preparing for an adventure. And wait until you meet our cook, Long John Silver, he added. A better man you'll never find. The next day, I went into town with a note from the squire. He asked me to deliver it to John Silver at his tavern, called the Spyglass Inn. I walked through the busy streets and found the sign with the picture of a spyglass. Inside, the tavern was crowded with sailors. Behind the bar stood a tall man with a wooden crutch, which he used instead of his missing left leg. His face was big and cheerful, and a green parrot sat on his shoulder. He turned to me and smiled kindly. You must be young Hawkins, he said. I'm Silver. You brought the letter, eh? He shook my hand. Right then, I saw a man at one of the tables. He stood up quickly and ran out the door. I recognized him. It was Black Dog, the sailor who had once visited Billy Bones at our inn. That man! I cried. That was Black Dog. Silver turned sharply. What? You sure, boy? Yes. He came to the Admiral Benbow Inn. He fought with the old captain. Silver frowned and shouted to his men. Run after him. Don't let him get away. A few sailors ran into the street, but Black Dog was gone. Silver turned back to me. I didn't know he was here. What kind of place is this if pirates come in to drink? He seemed angry and embarrassed. He asked me to stay while he spoke to the local officer and made a report. He returned shortly. I've told them everything, he said. Now, Jim, let's go see the ship. We walked to the harbor together. I liked Silver more and more. He talked in a friendly way, laughed often, and told funny sea stories. He didn't act like a pirate at all. We reached the dock, and there she was, the Hispaniola. She was a beautiful ship, long, clean, and strong. Her sails were tied, her ropes were neat, and everything looked ready for sea. Silver shouted to the men aboard. "This is Jim Hawkins. He's coming with us." A few of the crew waved or nodded. I noticed one man in particular, a short sailor with very pale skin and a quiet voice. His name was Israel Hands. He was the ship's boatswain, the man in charge of ropes and sails. That evening, I returned to the squire's lodging. He and Dr. Livesey were finishing dinner. "Well?" the doctor asked. "Did you meet Silver?" "Yes, sir," I said. "And I liked him very much." "Everyone does," said the squire. "He's a good man, brave, loyal, and smart." Dr. Livesey looked thoughtful, but said nothing. Chapter 8, At the Sign of the Spyglass. Full adaptation in simple English. That evening, Dr. Livesey, Squire Trelawney, and I sat together at the squire's rooms in Bristol. I told them everything that had happened at the Spyglass Tavern and how I had seen Black Dog. The squire shook his head. So Black Dog was there, and Silver pretended he didn't know him? He didn't act like he knew him, I said. He seemed angry that Black Dog had been there. Do you believe him? Dr. Livesey asked me. I hesitated. Silver had been kind and friendly. He seemed honest. I think so, I said. Dr. Livesey looked serious. It may be so, he said. But we must be careful. Then he turned to the squire. You've had too much freedom in hiring the crew. I know, the squire admitted. I can't keep secrets. I told the shipbuilder, the innkeeper, and half the town we were going on a treasure hunt. It was a mistake. It may be too late to fix it, said the doctor. What do we do now? I asked. We watch, said the doctor. We say nothing to make them suspicious. But we keep our eyes open, especially on Long John Silver. The next morning, we went down to the harbor. The ship, Hispaniola, was almost ready to sail. There we met Captain Smollett, the man who would lead the voyage. He was a sharp, serious man with gray hair and a strong voice. From the beginning, he looked unhappy. Mr. Trelawney, he said, I must speak with you. I have something to say, and you won't like it. Speak freely, said the squire. First, said the captain, I don't like this voyage. I don't like the men you hired. And I don't like that everyone knows we're going after treasure. The squire stood up angrily. If you don't like it, sir, you can leave the ship. Calm down, said Dr. Livesey. Let's hear what he means. Captain Smollett went on. Too many of the crew know too much. They talk about treasure and about Flint. And I don't like the look of some of them. Do you have proof? Asked the doctor. No, the captain admitted. But I don't like it. I want the arms, guns and powder, stored in a safe place. I want to know who sleeps near them. And I want to keep the map secret. We agreed to all his requests. Then the captain added. One more thing. There's a man named Silver. He's the ship's cook. We all froze for a second. He's a one-legged man, said the captain. But the crew respect him. I don't trust him. Dr. Livesey smiled. We feel the same. We'll say nothing, but we'll be watching. And so, the ship was ready. The stores were loaded, the crew were aboard, and our secret was locked tight. I went to bed that night full of thoughts and excitement. Tomorrow, we would sail. We would leave England behind. And begin the journey to Treasure Island. Chapter 9, Powder and Arms. The next day, early in the morning, we all went down to the harbor. The Hispaniola was ready. Her sails were set, and her crew stood waiting on the deck. Boxes of food, barrels of water, powder, and weapons were already on board. I stood on the dock, looking at the ship. My heart was beating fast. This was really happening. We were going to sea, to find buried treasure on a mysterious island. Captain Smollett walked up to us. He looked calm and serious as always. All stores are aboard, sir, he said to the squire. Good, said Trelawney. We sail with the tide, in 1 hour, said the captain. Dr. Livesey and I followed the captain aboard. Sailors shouted to each other, pulling ropes and preparing the ship. I looked around. The deck was neat. The sails were tight. Everything was ready. Captain Smollett had his own plans to stay safe. As soon as we were on board, he quietly spoke to Dr. Livesey, Squire Trelawney, and me. Let's go to the cabin, he said. When we were inside, he locked the door and spoke in a low voice. I still don't like this crew, he said. I want to keep the guns and powder in one place, where only I and my officers can reach them. Good idea, said Dr. Livesey. I've chosen 6 men I trust, said the captain. They'll be armed and ready if there's trouble. The rest, we'll watch them closely. We agreed. The captain showed us a small room under the back of the ship where the weapons would be kept. It had a strong door and a lock. Only the captain held the key. We moved the cutlasses, pistols, powder, and lead balls there. It was quiet work, done while the crew was busy with sails and ropes. I watched Long John Silver walk across the deck. He moved easily with his crutch, smiling and talking to the men. Everyone seemed to like him. He told jokes, laughed loudly, and sang old sea songs. But I remembered what Captain Smollett had said. We were watching him now, all of us. Finally, everything was ready. The captain gave the order, and the ship slowly pulled away from the dock. Raise the anchor. Let out the sails. Steady on the helm. Sailors shouted and worked together like a well-trained team. I stood at the rail and watched England fade into the distance. The land became smaller and smaller. Until it was gone. I turned toward the open sea, full of wind, waves, and adventure. We were on our way to Treasure Island. Chapter 10, The Voyage. At first, the voyage went very well. The Hispaniola was a fine ship. She moved quickly and smoothly through the waves. The wind was good, the sun was warm, and the crew worked hard. Everyone on board seemed happy, especially Long John Silver. He was always friendly. He moved around the deck on his crutch like a man with 2 good legs. He laughed, gave orders, and told stories that made everyone smile. The men respected him. Some even loved him. He called me, my boy, and let me help in the galley, the ship's kitchen. He showed me how to cook simple food, and he gave me sweet apples and warm advice. You're a smart lad, Jim, he would say. You keep your eyes open and your mouth shut, and you'll go far. But sometimes, when he didn't know I was watching, I saw something different. His smile would vanish. His eyes turned cold and hard. And I remembered Captain Smollett's warning. Watch him. There was only one person on board that nobody liked, the man named Mr. Arrow, the first mate. He was supposed to help the captain command the ship. But Mr. Arrow was always drinking. No one knew where he got the rum, the barrels were locked, but he was often drunk, loud, and confused. He gave bad orders and stumbled around the deck. The men laughed at him behind his back. Captain Smollett was angry. This man will be the ruin of us, he said. Then, one stormy night, Mr. Arrow simply disappeared. He went up on deck, and by morning, he was gone. No one saw him fall. No one heard a splash. He had vanished. Captain Smollett said nothing more, but I knew he was thinking hard. After that, a man named Israel Hands became more important on the ship. He was a strong, silent sailor who had been close to Mr. Arrow. Now he gave more orders and seemed to be in charge of many men. He also spent a lot of time with Long John Silver. One day, something happened that changed everything. I was walking on the deck and wanted an apple. There was a large barrel of apples near the mast. I reached in, but the apples were low, so I climbed inside to reach one at the bottom. It was warm and dark in the barrel, and I was tired, so I stayed for a moment. Suddenly, I heard voices. Men came and sat near the barrel. I stayed still and listened. One of the voices was Long John Silver's. So, he said, we wait. When the time is right, we take the ship. My heart stopped. Silver was planning a mutiny. Chapter 11, What I Heard in the Apple Barrel. I stayed very still inside the apple barrel. I was afraid to move. I was afraid to breathe. Just outside, Long John Silver sat with another sailor, a young man whose voice I didn't know. The wind blew gently, and the ship rocked on the water. But everything around me disappeared as I listened. Silver spoke softly but clearly. "Yes, boy," he said. "I was with Captain Flint, the most famous pirate who ever lived." "You?" the other man asked. "You sailed with Flint?" "I did," said Silver. "I was his quartermaster, second in command. We took ship after ship. We buried treasure on islands no one knows about." "And what about the treasure now?" the man asked. "The one we're sailing to?" Silver lowered his voice. "It's real," he said. "I've seen the map. It's Flint's. And it leads straight to gold, more than you can dream of. Why don't we take the ship now?" "Not yet," said Silver. "We wait until the treasure is aboard. Then, when they think they're safe, we strike. We kill the captain. We kill the doctor. We kill the boy, too, Jim Hawkins." My heart jumped in my chest. "What about the others?" the man asked. "A few can live, if they join us. But the rest, we'll leave them behind or put them overboard." The young sailor was quiet for a while. "I didn't know you were one of Flint's men," he said. "I was," said Silver proudly. "And I've got others on board with me. Hans. Mary. Dick. All loyal. But they trust you," said the man. "Even Jim likes you." Silver laughed. "That's the trick, isn't it? Smile at them. Help them. Feed them. Then, when they least expect it, you take everything." He stood up and stretched. "Enough talk. Keep your mouth shut, and you'll be rich." They walked away. I waited in the barrel for a while longer, until I was sure they were gone. Then I climbed out, my legs shaking. I had to tell someone, now. I looked around and saw Dr. Livesey walking near the bow. I rushed to him and whispered, "Doctor. I need to speak with you. It's about Long John Silver." He looked at my face and nodded. "Come to the cabin," he said. Quietly. In the captain's cabin, I told them everything, the mutiny, the plan to take the treasure, the murder they were planning. Dr. Livesey, Captain Smollett, and Squire Trelawney listened without a word. When I finished, the captain said, "Well done, Jim. You've saved us all." The doctor nodded. "This is worse than we thought," he said. "Silver fooled everyone." "How many of them are on his side?" asked the captain. "Too many," said the squire. "But not all." The captain stood and looked out the window. "We'll pretend we know nothing," he said. "We'll act friendly. We'll let them help us unload supplies when we land. Then, we strike first." Chapter 12, Council of War. After I told the others what I had heard in the apple barrel, we sat quietly for a moment. Then Captain Smollett spoke. "Gentlemen, we are in great danger. We have a ship full of pirates. But they think we don't know. That gives us time." He looked at Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and me. "We must keep pretending. Be friendly. Smile. Let them think we trust them. That's our only chance." "And when do we fight back?" the squire asked. "When the time is right," said the captain. "Maybe when we reach the island." Dr. Livesey agreed. "They want the treasure. They won't attack until they have it. That gives us a little time." The captain turned to me. "Jim, you were very brave. You saved all our lives." I felt proud, but also scared. The ship still seemed normal on the outside, men laughing, working, talking, but now I knew many of them were planning to kill us. We spent the next 2 days watching and waiting. We saw who talked to whom, who gave orders, who looked nervous or excited. There were 19 sailors on board, not counting us 4 and the captain's loyal men. Out of those 19, we guessed that at least 7 or 8 were still honest, not part of the mutiny. That gave us some hope. Soon, someone shouted, "Land ho!" We ran on deck. In the distance, a strange-looking island appeared. It was dark green with thick forests. A tall hill rose from the center like a cone, the spyglass hill from the map. The crew gathered at the sides, staring. I heard a man whisper, "Treasure Island." The ship moved slowly toward the island. Everyone was quiet. Even the pirates seemed calm, but I knew they were just waiting. That night, we met again in secret in the captain's cabin. "They'll act soon," said Smollett. "Maybe tomorrow. We must stay ahead of them." "Should we strike first?" asked Trelawney. "No," said the doctor. "If we attack too early, we may lose. We must be smart, not fast." The captain nodded. "Tomorrow, we'll let them go ashore. They'll think they're free to explore. Then we'll take the ship or move to a safe place on land. We didn't know exactly what would happen next. But one thing was certain. The real fight for Treasure Island was about to begin. Chapter 13, How My Shore Adventure Began. Early the next morning, the sun rose red over the sea. The sky was clear, and the air was warm. The island lay in front of us, green, wild, and silent. We dropped anchor in a small bay on the eastern side. From the deck of the ship, we could see trees, rocks, and the high hill known as the Spyglass. The men were excited. "There it is," said one. "Flint's treasure is somewhere out there," said another. Even those who were not part of Silver's secret plan were dreaming of gold. Captain Smollett stayed calm. He spoke to the whole crew. "Men," he said, "you've worked hard and done well. Now that we've arrived, I'll give you all some rest. You may go ashore, 6 at a time." The men cheered. Long John Silver smiled and said, "Thank you, Captain. That's fair." He picked 6 men, and they climbed into a small boat. Silver followed them, using his crutch to hop easily into the boat. He laughed and joked with the crew as they rowed to shore. More men followed. Small boats moved back and forth between the ship and the island. I stood watching all this. Then, without thinking, I made a choice. I didn't ask permission. I didn't tell anyone. I simply climbed into one of the last boats, and went ashore. The island was thick with trees and vines. There were strange birds in the air, and I heard the sound of insects and animals all around. As soon as my feet touched the sand, I felt free. I didn't know where the others were. The sailors had gone off into the forest. So I began to walk on my own, just me, Jim Hawkins, on a mysterious island filled with danger. I climbed over fallen logs, walked past wild flowers, and followed a small stream into the woods. It was hot under the trees. The leaves made shadows on the ground, and the air smelled of salt and plants. I walked for a long time without seeing anyone. Then, suddenly, voices. I moved quietly through the trees and stopped near a clearing. There were 2 sailors, standing and arguing. One was angry. The other looked scared. Then, before I could move, the angry one raised his arm, and stabbed the other with a knife. The man fell with a terrible cry and lay still. I gasped, then turned and ran, deeper into the forest, heart pounding. Now I knew, the mutiny had begun. The pirates were already killing their own. I was alone in the jungle, surrounded by traitors. But I was alive, and I had to stay that way. Chapter 14, The First Blow. While I was alone in the forest, the others were still on the Hispaniola or near the shore. Let me now tell you what happened to Captain Smollett, Dr. Livesey, and Squire Trelawney, while I was exploring the island. After the first group of men went ashore with Long John Silver, the captain saw more and more sailors asking to go too. Silver encouraged it. "The men need a little time to stretch their legs, Captain," he said with a smile. "They've been at sea too long." Captain Smollett agreed. He had his own plan. He carefully watched which men stayed loyal and which followed Silver. After a while, only 6 men were left on board who could be trusted. The rest were clearly on Silver's side. Smollett turned to Trelawney and Livesey. "It's time," he said. "We can't wait any longer." The captain and his men quickly armed themselves, gathered food, guns, and gunpowder, and climbed into the small boat. Their goal, to find a safe place on the island where they could defend themselves. They rowed toward the shore carefully and looked for a good hiding place. That's when they found it. Near the trees, not far from the water, stood a small stockade, a kind of wooden fort with high log walls and a house in the middle. It had been built long ago by other sailors or pirates, maybe even by Flint himself. "This is perfect," said the captain. "Strong walls, clear view of the land and sea, will hold this place." The men entered the stockade and began to clean it, repair the gates, and prepare for defense. They were safe, for now. But then came the pirates. Soon after, Silver and a group of men appeared at the edge of the forest. They saw the captain's group at the fort. Silver raised a white flag. He wanted to talk. Captain Smollett walked out to meet him, just outside the gate. Silver leaned on his crutch and smiled. "Captain," he said, "you don't need to fight. Give us the map, and we'll let you go." "You're no longer under my command," the captain replied. "You and your men are traitors." Silver's eyes narrowed, but he still smiled. "You'll be sorry," he said. "When we take this place, there'll be no mercy." "That's enough," said the captain. "Now get off my land." Silver turned and limped away. Soon after, the pirates attacked. They came running from the trees, shouting and firing their guns. The captain and his men were ready. Gunshots cracked. Smoke filled the air. 2 pirates fell immediately. Another was hit trying to climb the wall. The rest pulled back, leaving their wounded behind. The defenders inside the fort were tired, but alive. "We've won the first battle," said the captain. "But the war has only begun." Chapter 15, The Man of the Island. I kept running through the forest. I had just seen one sailor murder another, and I knew I couldn't trust anyone. I had no idea where I was going, I only wanted to get as far away from the pirates as possible. The trees were thick, and the ground was rough. I pushed through bushes and climbed over fallen logs. Strange birds flew overhead, and I heard noises all around, insects, animals, the sound of leaves moving. Then, suddenly, I stopped. In front of me, standing still in the trees, was a man. He was watching me. He looked wild, like someone who had lived in the forest for a long time. His clothes were torn and patched. His beard was long and tangled. His skin was very brown from the sun. He didn't look dangerous, but I was still afraid. He stepped forward and raised his hands. "Don't be scared," he said. "I won't hurt you." His voice was strange, soft, with a nervous tone, like he hadn't spoken in years. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Ben Gunn," he said. That name sounded familiar. I remembered that Silver had mentioned it once, someone who had sailed with Captain Flint. "You were with Flint?" I asked. "Yes," said Ben Gunn. "I was on his ship, years ago." He stepped closer and looked at me with wide eyes. "Have you got a ship?" he asked. "Are you with the crew that just arrived?" "Yes," I said. "But some of them are pirates." "I'm not with them." Ben Gunn smiled. "I knew it," he said. "I saw the ship and the boats, I knew something was happening." Then his voice dropped to a whisper. "Jim, may I call you Jim? I've been on this island 3 years. Flint left me here with no food and no friends." I couldn't believe it. 3 years? I said. "How have you survived?" "Oh, I've eaten goats, berries, birds. I made a tent from logs. I built a boat, though it's not a very good one." Then he leaned close and said, "Jim, would you help me get off this island? If your friends take me home, I'll help you." "Help us how?" I asked. He looked around and whispered, "I know where the treasure is." I stared at him. "You've seen it?" "Yes. I found it 2 years ago. I didn't touch it, too heavy to carry. But I know where it is." He grabbed my arm. "Jim, I'm a good man now. I've prayed and changed. I just want to go home, and maybe have some cheese." "Cheese?" I asked, confused. "Yes," he said, nodding seriously. "I dream of cheese." I laughed, and Ben Gunn laughed with me. Just then, we heard the sound of cannon fire in the distance, a deep boom that shook the air. "That's from the ship," I said. "They're fighting." Ben Gunn looked worried. "You should go to your friends," he said. "But remember, Jim, if you ever need help, come to the White Rock on the east side of the island. I'll be there." Then he turned and ran off into the forest, disappearing among the trees. I stood alone, thinking. Ben Gunn. 3 years alone. And he knew where the treasure was. Chapter 16, Narrative continued by the Doctor, How the Ship Was Abandoned. Now I, Dr. Livesey, will tell you what happened after Jim Hawkins went ashore. At first, we didn't notice he was gone. There was so much confusion as men climbed into the small boats and rowed to the island. Long John Silver had convinced most of the crew to join him on land. That gave us a chance. Captain Smollett, Squire Trelawney, and I talked quickly in secret. "Now is the time," said the captain. "We must move while most of the pirates are ashore." We acted fast. We quietly gathered our loyal men, only a few of them, and got ready. We took muskets, long guns, pistols, gunpowder and bullets, food and water, medical supplies. We packed everything into a small boat. We left only one man behind on the Hispaniola, a sailor named Gray, who still wasn't sure which side to choose. We hoped he might help us later. Then we rowed toward the island, staying close to the trees so the pirates wouldn't see us. We reached the beach safely and began looking for a place to hide. That's when we saw it, an old stockade, a wooden fort on a small hill near a stream. It was just as it had been shown on the map. It had strong log walls, a small house inside, a big open space for fighting or cooking, a well with fresh water. "Perfect," said Captain Smollett. "We'll defend this place." We moved quickly, bringing everything inside and locking the gates. We also raised the British flag over the fort, a red cross on a white background. Later that day, we saw Silver and some pirates watching us from the trees. They didn't attack, not yet. But we knew they would, soon. So we prepared. Loaded the guns. Placed guards. Took turns sleeping. Watched every movement outside the walls. At sunset, we heard something strange, someone singing in the woods. It was Long John Silver, singing a sailor's song. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. We stayed silent and kept our weapons close. We were outnumbered, and the pirates were dangerous. But we had something they didn't. Discipline. Loyalty. And courage. And as we waited through the night, we hoped that Jim Hawkins was safe. Chapter 17, narrative continued by the Doctor, the Jollyboat's last trip. The next morning, we woke up inside the stockade. Everyone was tired, but we were still alive and safe, for now. We didn't know where Jim Hawkins was, and we worried about him. But we had a more urgent problem. We needed more supplies from the ship, especially gunpowder and food. Captain Smollett, Squire Trelawney, and I talked it over. We decided to make one last trip to the Hispaniola using the small boat, called the Jollyboat. It was dangerous. If the pirates saw us, they could shoot. If the sea was rough, we might flip the boat. Still, we had to try. There were only 4 of us on this trip. Myself, Dr. Livesey. Hunter, one of our loyal men. Joyce, another trusted sailor. And Redruth, the squire's old servant. We waited until early morning when the sea was calm. The sun was still low, and there was a thin mist on the water. We hoped the pirates wouldn't see us. We pushed the jolly boat into the water and began to row toward the ship. At first, all went well. The boat moved quietly. But as we got closer to the Hispaniola, we felt the current pulling us. The tide had changed, and the water began to push us away from the ship. We rowed harder. The little boat rocked and began to fill with water. "We're too low," Hunter shouted. "The boat can't hold this weight." The waves were growing stronger. We had to decide, go back or risk sinking. The captain had warned us, if the tide turned, the boat would be useless. I looked up at the ship. It was just out of reach. We couldn't make it. "We must throw some things overboard," I said. "Or we'll sink." We threw 2 barrels of food into the sea, hoping we could find them later. Then we turned the boat and rowed hard back toward shore. We reached land just in time. The jolly boat was full of water, and we were wet and tired. But we were alive. The trip had failed. We didn't get the supplies we needed. And now we had no boat left to return to the ship. "We must hold the stockade," said Captain Smollett, when I told him what happened. "This place is our only chance." Chapter 18, narrative continued by the Doctor, end of the first day's fighting. By the time we returned from the failed trip to the ship, the sun was high. We were tired and wet, but we couldn't rest. The pirates were watching us from the trees. We could feel it, we were surrounded. Captain Smollett stayed calm. He gave each of us clear orders. Everyone had a job, some watched the walls, others loaded the guns, and I, being the doctor, looked after our small group and kept the wounded stable. We were only 7 men inside the stockade now, but we were ready to fight. The first shot came in the early afternoon. A bullet hit the log wall, and then another. The pirates were hiding in the woods, firing from behind trees and rocks. We couldn't see them well, but they could see our flag waving above the fort. We stayed down behind the walls, waiting. Then, all at once, there was a loud cry and heavy footsteps. The pirates were charging. They came out of the forest yelling, some with swords, some with pistols, all running straight for our gate. They looked wild and angry, like mad dogs let loose. But Captain Smollett didn't panic. He let them come close. Only when they reached the clearing near the gate, he gave the order. We fired together. The sound was like thunder. Smoke filled the air. 2 pirates fell instantly, and another stumbled and crawled away. Still, the others kept coming. They reached the wall, trying to climb over it with knives and hands. One man tried to pull down the wooden gate, screaming as he did it. But Joyce shot him at close range. Another pirate managed to climb halfway up the wall before Redruth struck him with the butt of his musket. He fell back into the dirt, groaning. The fighting lasted less than 5 minutes, but it felt much longer. When it ended, the clearing was quiet again. The pirates had pulled back into the trees. We could hear them shouting and swearing in the forest, but they did not come again that day. Inside the stockade, we counted our losses. Joyce was unharmed, but Hunter had been hit in the shoulder. Redruth, poor old Redruth, had been shot in the chest. He lay on the ground, breathing hard. I knelt beside him. He opened his eyes and looked at me. "I'm sorry, sir," he whispered. I tried to stay strong. "You were brave," I told him. "Rest now." He closed his eyes and did not open them again. He had died doing his duty, an old servant, loyal to the end. The others stood quietly for a moment. Then we returned to work. We cleaned the guns, moved the wounded, and prepared for night. The first real battle had ended. We had driven the pirates back. But we had lost a man, and we knew more danger was coming. We sat inside the stockade as the sky grew dark, listening to the sounds of the forest and the sea, and wondering what the next day would bring. Chapter 19, narrative resumed by Jim Hawkins, The Garrison in the Stockade. I returned to the stockade just before nightfall. I had met Ben Gunn, the wild man who had lived alone on the island for 3 years. He had told me he knew where the treasure was, and that he wanted to help us, if we promised to take him home. When I reached the fort, I found everyone inside. The battle was over, but the air still smelled like smoke and gunpowder. The men looked tired and serious. When they saw me, they were surprised and relieved. "Jim," the doctor cried. "We thought you were dead." "I'm safe," I said, "and I've met someone, Ben Gunn. He's not a pirate. He wants to help us." They listened to my story with great interest. Ben Gunn had lived on the island alone, hiding from Flint's men. He had built a small hut, eaten goats and fruit, and kept out of sight. He was a little strange from being alone so long, but he seemed honest. I didn't tell them everything right away, not about Ben's offer or what he had told me about the treasure. I wanted to keep that secret for a little longer. I wasn't sure why, but I felt it was important. We had supper, some bread and cheese and water. It wasn't much, but we were grateful. Then Captain Smollett spoke. "Jim, I don't like you running off alone. You're brave, but it's dangerous." "I understand, sir," I said. "Good," he nodded. "From now on, no one leaves the fort without orders." I agreed, but I had another plan in mind already. That night, everyone fell asleep quickly, tired after the long day. I lay on my blanket, staring at the roof. The sounds of the night filled the air, frogs, wind, distant waves, and something more, the Hispaniola, still floating in the bay, unguarded. An idea came to me. A bold, wild idea. What if I could take the ship? It was risky, but if the pirates got the treasure and still had the ship, we would have no way home. If I could reach the ship before they did, cut it loose, and hide it, that would change everything. I sat up slowly. The others were still asleep. I took a bit of bread, my pistol, and slipped out through a small hole in the stockade wall. The moon lit my way as I walked through the forest. I was careful not to make noise. I moved between the trees, down toward the shore, my heart beating fast. When I reached the beach, the ship was still there. It was floating quietly in the water, its sails down, its deck empty. I found Ben Gunn's homemade boat hidden near the white rock, just where he had said it would be. It looked small and strange, like something a child had built. It barely floated, but I climbed in, pushed off from the sand, and paddled slowly toward the Hispaniola. It was my most dangerous adventure yet. And I was completely alone. Chapter 20, Silver's Embassy. It was early morning. A quiet mist lay over the island, and the sun was just starting to rise. Inside the stockade, the men were waking up slowly. We didn't know where Jim Hawkins had gone, but we were too busy to search. There were more serious problems ahead. Just after sunrise, we heard footsteps in the grass. Then a voice shouted, "Flag of truce!" We looked out through the logs and saw Long John Silver. He was walking slowly on his crutch, holding a white cloth tied to a stick. His green parrot was sitting on his shoulder, squawking, "Pieces of 8. Pieces of 8. Captain Smollett stood up straight. He had been waiting for this. "Let him in," he said. "But I'll speak with him alone." The gate was opened, and Silver limped into the fort. He smiled at everyone, but we didn't smile back. He walked right up to the captain. "Good morning to you, Captain," he said cheerfully. "You're no captain of mine," replied Smollett coldly. "Oh, come now," said Silver. "No need to be unfriendly. I come with a fair offer." Captain Smollett didn't answer. Silver kept talking. "We want the map. Give it to us, and we'll let you leave safely. You can have a boat and go home." The captain didn't move. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Silver's voice changed. It was no longer friendly. "Then we'll take the fort by force. We'll burn it down, and we'll leave no one alive." Captain Smollett waited a moment, then spoke slowly and clearly. "Here's my answer, we don't have the map. You'll never get it. And we'll fight to the last man before we let you win." Silver's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this," he said. "When I send my men back, they'll come with fire and guns." He turned and limped back toward the gate. "Good day to you, gentlemen," he said. "You've chosen war." We closed the gate behind him and went back to our positions. Captain Smollett turned to us. "The battle's coming. Be ready." Outside, we could hear the pirates shouting, moving through the forest. Inside, we checked our weapons and took our places along the walls. Silver had made his offer. We had refused. Now there would be war. Chapter 21, The Attack. The sun rose higher, and the heat grew heavy. Inside the stockade, we waited. We knew the pirates would attack soon. Captain Smollett was calm. He stood straight, watching the trees. His musket was loaded, and his sword hung at his side. We had taken our places, some near the gate, others by the firing holes in the wooden walls. Suddenly, we heard it, the sharp crack of a musket. A shot hit the log wall. Then came a wild shout, voices screaming, feet pounding. The pirates were coming. They burst out of the trees, running full speed toward the fort. Some had pistols, others had swords and axes. They looked wild and angry, their faces red with rage. Captain Smollett shouted, "Wait for it, now." We fired together. Smoke filled the air. One pirate fell, then another. But the rest kept running. They reached the stockade and tried to climb the walls. Two got over, one was shot, the other fell with a scream when Hunter struck him with the butt of his musket. Another pirate managed to pull the gate open just enough to squeeze inside. It was Job Anderson, one of the worst of them. He came in swinging a cutlass. Captain Smollett stepped forward to fight him. Their blades crashed together. I fired my pistol, but the smoke made it hard to see. Joyce was hit and fell. Hunter was knocked down. The fighting became close and brutal, not with guns now, but with hands and blades. Captain Smollett fought like a soldier. He cut Anderson across the chest, but the pirate didn't fall. They clashed again. Then Redruth, already wounded, fired his musket from the ground and hit Anderson in the leg. He stumbled, and the captain finished the fight with one clean strike. The others helped push the remaining pirates back out through the gate. Then, silence. The fight was over. The air was full of smoke. The ground was stained with blood. The wounded groaned, and the dead lay still. We had won. The pirates had retreated. But it had cost us dearly. Joyce was dead. Hunter was badly hurt and couldn't speak. The captain himself had a deep wound in the side, and Redruth had taken a bullet in the shoulder. I sat down on the floor, breathing hard. We were alive, but only just. And we didn't know where Jim Hawkins was. Chapter 22, How My Sea Adventure Began. Now the story comes back to me, Jim Hawkins. While the others were fighting the pirates at the stockade, I was out at sea, alone in Ben Gunn's small boat. The little boat was strange, made of wood and goatskin, and it rocked in every wave. It was hard to keep it moving straight. I used a paddle and did my best, but the current pushed me where it wanted. I was trying to reach the Hispaniola. The ship was still floating quietly in the bay. I couldn't see anyone on deck. I wondered if the pirates were still aboard, or if they had all gone ashore. The sun was high and hot. I had no food, no water, and no way to protect myself. Still, I kept going. Slowly, the ship grew closer. The sea sparkled, and I began to feel sleepy. The boat drifted with the current, and I let it move. It turned gently, circling behind the ship. I lay back for a moment, resting my arms. Then I heard something, voices. 2 men were shouting on board the Hispaniola. They were angry, screaming, fighting. I sat up quickly and listened. One voice was deep and growling, that was Israel Hands. The other was high and wild, a drunken pirate named O'Brien. They were both drunk, cursing and yelling. Suddenly, there was a crash. Then silence. I waited, heart beating fast. Then a head appeared over the rail, Israel Hands. His face was pale, and blood was running down his side. He looked weak. He didn't see me. The ship drifted with the tide. The little boat drifted too. Slowly, carefully, I paddled closer. No one else appeared. The deck was empty. The sails flapped lazily in the wind. At last, the small boat bumped against the side of the Hispaniola. I climbed up quietly, gripping a rope with shaking hands. I was aboard. Chapter 23, The Ebb Tide Runs. I climbed quietly over the side of the Hispaniola and lowered myself onto the deck. Everything was still. The sails hung loose. The ropes moved gently with the breeze. I saw no one, just the blue sky, the sea, and the empty ship. Then I saw them. 2 men lay on the deck. One was O'Brien, a pirate. He was dead, with a knife still stuck in his back. The other was Israel Hands. He was badly wounded. His leg was bleeding, and he looked half-conscious. He opened his eyes and looked at me without surprise. "Jim Hawkins," he said slowly. "It's you." I stepped back and pointed my pistol at him. "Don't move," I said. But he only laughed weakly. "No fear, oh, that," he muttered. "Not with this leg." I looked around. The deck was a mess, ropes everywhere, sails torn, blood on the wood. The 2 pirates must have fought after drinking. Now O'Brien was dead, and Israel was helpless. The ship was mine. But I had a problem. The wind and tide were pushing the ship out to sea. If I didn't act quickly, the Hispaniola would drift away from the island. I had to take control of the sails and anchor, and I had to do it alone. Israel watched me as I began to work. "You know what you're doing, boy?" he asked. "I know enough," I said. I cut the rope that held the sail, and it dropped with a snap. The wind caught it, and the ship began to move again, not wildly now, but slowly and in the direction I wanted. I pulled the rudder and tried to steer. The ship turned. The island came back into view. I aimed for a quiet place behind the trees, far from the stockade, where I could beach the ship without being seen. It wasn't easy. The wind changed. The current pulled. But after a long, tense hour, I managed to guide the Hispaniola into a small inlet, a narrow piece of calm water near the shore. With the last of my strength, I dropped the anchor. The ship was safe. I turned to Israel. He was still lying on the deck, watching me. His face had changed. He looked more awake, more dangerous. "Help me, boy," he said. "Give me a little rum. Fix my leg. I'll help you sail this ship back to your friends." "I'll get you a bandage," I said. "But no rum." He frowned, but didn't argue. I went below deck to find some cloth for his wound. But I knew something now. Israel Hands was not finished. He was planning something. And I had to be ready. Chapter 24, The Cruise of the Coracle. I went below deck and found some cloth and fresh water for Israel Hands' wound. When I returned, I cleaned the blood from his leg and wrapped the cloth tightly. He grunted in pain but didn't complain. "Thank you, lad," he said. "You're a good boy." But I didn't trust him. His eyes were too sharp now. His voice was smoother, like he was pretending to be weak. I had seen that look before, like a snake waiting to strike. He sat up slowly. "Jim," he said, "let's make peace. You need help sailing this ship, and I know how. We can go together. Just fetch me some food and a bit of rum." I shook my head. "No rum," I said again. "But I'll bring you some bread." I gave him a small piece and sat near the wheel, keeping my pistol close. The Hispaniola now lay still in the water, anchored near the shore. The sun was high, and the sea sparkled around us. It seemed peaceful, but I was on edge. After a while, Israel spoke again. "Jim, help me to the other side of the deck. I'll steer, and you can pull the sails." I agreed, carefully helping him stand. He leaned on my shoulder, limping across the ship. But as we moved, I noticed something. His hand was reaching slowly toward a knife hidden near the mast. I pretended not to see. I helped him sit down, then stepped back, holding my pistol tighter. He grinned at me. "Well, lad," he said softly, "I suppose it's time." And suddenly, he threw the knife straight at me. I jumped to the side. The blade cut my shoulder, and I cried out in pain. My pistol went off by accident, bang. And the shot missed. Hands rushed at me, fast and wild, no longer limping. I turned and ran across the deck. He chased me, limping but fast enough. I climbed the rigging, the ropes and sails, up and up. He followed. Higher and higher we climbed, until we were near the top of the mast. The ship swayed gently under us. Then I looked down. Israel Hands was just below me. His knife was ready. But now I had a second pistol, reloaded. I pointed it at him. "One more step," I said, "and I'll shoot." He looked up at me with hatred. "You don't have the guts, boy," he said. I pulled the trigger. The pistol fired, and Israel Hands fell. He hit the deck with a terrible sound. His body rolled once, then lay still. He was dead. I climbed back down slowly, shaking. My arm burned from the knife wound, and I was dizzy with fear and relief. The ship was mine again. But I was alone. Chapter 25, I Strike the Jolly Roger. After I cleaned and bandaged my shoulder, I rested for a while on the deck of the Hispaniola. I was tired, hurt, and shaken. But I was alive. The ship was mine. Now I needed to do one more thing. I climbed up and took down the Jolly Roger, the black pirate flag with the white skull and bones. It had been flying on the ship since the pirates took control. I pulled it down and threw it into the sea. Then I smiled. The ship was no longer theirs. The sun was starting to set. The sky turned orange, and long shadows fell over the sea. It was time to go back to my friends at the stockade. I got into the small boat again, Ben Gunn's coracle, and paddled slowly back to the island. My arms ached, and the water rocked me from side to side. But I kept going. It was dark by the time I reached the shore. I dragged the coracle onto the sand, hid it behind a rock, and walked toward the fort. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. As I got closer to the stockade, I saw something strange. There was a fire burning inside. I could see figures moving, men sitting around the flames, talking, laughing. But their voices were low and rough. I crept closer and listened. Then I realized, they weren't my friends. These were pirates. They had taken the stockade. My heart dropped. What had happened? Had Captain Smollett and the others been killed or captured? I had no idea. I looked at the gate. If I turned and ran, I might escape. But I was too tired, too confused, and, I must admit, too stubborn. I had come all this way. So I stood tall, took a deep breath, and walked through the gate. Inside, the pirates turned to look at me. Their faces were surprised. One of them stood and smiled. It was Long John Silver. "Well, well," he said. "Look who's here. Jim Hawkins himself." He laughed, and the other pirates laughed with him. "Come in, lad. Welcome back to camp." I didn't know what game Silver was playing. But I walked forward, trying not to show fear. Inside, my heart was racing. Chapter 26, Israel Hands. I stood inside the stockade, surrounded by pirates. The fire crackled, and the men looked at me with surprised, unfriendly eyes. Some were wounded. Others sat with bottles of rum. But they all stared like wolves watching a lamb. Then Long John Silver stepped forward, smiling. "Well, Jim Hawkins," he said. "This is a pleasure. And quite a surprise." I said nothing. "Now tell me," he continued, "how did you come here? Did they send you? Or did you run away?" "I came on my own," I said. "I took the Hispaniola. It's safe and anchored. You'll never get it back." That made them angry. One pirate jumped to his feet. "Let's hang the boy now," he shouted. "Quiet," said Silver sharply. "He's under my protection. Anyone touches him, answers to me." There was silence. Silver looked at me again, more seriously now. You're a brave lad, he said. And clever. But you've put yourself in a bad place. I didn't answer. I sat down by the fire, watching them all carefully. Later, Silver pulled me aside. We walked a little away from the others. Jim, he said in a lower voice, we're in trouble. These men are angry, tired, and half crazy. They don't trust me anymore. That's your problem, I said. He chuckled. True. But I've got an idea. We help each other, you and me. Why would I help you? I asked. Because if I go down, so do you. But if we stand together, maybe we both get out alive. He leaned closer. I'll protect you. And if things turn bad, I'll make sure you live. That's more than anyone else will offer. I didn't like it, but I understood. I nodded. We had a kind of truce, an uneasy alliance between a boy and a pirate. That night, I lay in a corner of the hut. The floor was hard, and the air was hot. Around me, the pirates snored, mumbled, and tossed in their sleep. I couldn't rest. I thought about everything that had happened, the ship, the stockade, Ben Gunn, the dead men, and now Silver's strange game. I didn't trust him. But I needed him. For now. Chapter 27, Pieces of 8. The next morning, I woke up early. The air was cool and still. The sky above the stockade was pale gray. Around me, the pirates were still sleeping, their faces rough and tired, their clothes dirty and torn. Only Long John Silver was already awake. He sat by the fire, smoking his pipe and staring into the flames. He saw me sit up and gave me a small nod. Sleep well, Jim? He asked. Not really, I said. He smiled. You're not the only one. Then I noticed something. He looked worried. His eyes were sharp, his fingers twitching. He kept glancing at the others. Something was going to happen. Not long after, the pirates began to stir. One by one, they got up, stretched, and gathered near the fire. They were quiet. There was no laughter, no shouting. Just hard eyes and tense shoulders. Then one of them, a man named George Merry, stood up. We want a word with you, Silver, he said. Silver nodded calmly. Go ahead, George. We're tired of this, said Merry. The map. The treasure. This camp. The boy. We're not getting anywhere. We want new leadership. There was a low growl of agreement from the others. Silver stood slowly, leaning on his crutch. His parrot screamed, Pieces of 8. Pieces of 8, over and over again. So, Silver said softly, you want to take my place? Said Merry. You failed us. Silver looked around at the men. Then he turned and pointed at me. You see that boy, he said. That's Jim Hawkins. He took the Hispaniola from under your noses. He's the reason we don't have a ship. The pirates grumbled. Some looked at me with hatred. And yet, Silver continued, I saved him. Why? Because I've got a plan. A better plan than any of you. He pulled something from his coat, a folded paper. This, he said, is Flint's treasure map. Given to me by the doctor himself. In exchange for peace. The men gasped. Merry stepped back. You have the map. I do, said Silver. And if you want the treasure, you follow me. Or take your chances without it. There was silence. Then one pirate said, Silver's right. Another nodded. Slowly, they all agreed. Silver had won. Again. After the meeting, he came to me and smiled. Well, Jim, he said. Looks like I saved your life again. I didn't smile back. Why did the doctor give you the map? I asked. Silver only winked. All in good time, lad. All in good time. Chapter 28, In the Enemy's Camp. Later that morning, after the pirates had eaten and argued some more, Dr. Livesey appeared near the stockade. He walked straight through the trees, calm and upright, with his doctor's bag in hand. The pirates jumped to their feet. Some reached for their weapons, but Long John Silver raised his hand. Easy, lads, he said. He comes under a white flag. The doctor stopped a few feet away and tipped his hat. Good morning, gentlemen, he said cheerfully. Silver gave a grin. Well, the doctor himself. Come to check on your patient. Exactly, said the doctor. I heard the captain was wounded. You heard right, said Silver. And you gave me the map in return for letting your men live, eh? The doctor smiled politely. Let's not speak of that in front of the boy. He turned and looked at me. His face stayed calm, but his eyes were sharp. Jim, he said, you've given us all quite a scare. I wanted to say something, to explain everything, the ship, the fight with Israel hands, but the doctor gave me a quick shake of the head. Now was not the time. He stepped closer to Silver. May I examine your men? Some of them look ill. Silver nodded. You're the doctor. Dr. Livesey moved through the camp, checking wounds and offering advice. He spoke kindly even to the worst of the pirates. That was his way, always calm, always professional. Later, he pulled Silver aside. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could see their faces. They were talking about something serious. After a few minutes, the doctor left. He nodded once to me as he passed. Keep your head down, Jim, he whispered. Then he was gone, back into the trees. That night, I sat near the fire. The pirates were talking, but I stayed quiet. My thoughts raced. Why had the doctor given the map to Silver? What were they really planning? One thing was clear, Silver was caught in the middle. The pirates didn't trust him anymore, and the honest men didn't either. He was trying to survive, just like me. But who would win in the end? That, no one yet knew. Chapter 29, The Black Spot Again. That evening, the camp was tense. The pirates were angry, whispering to each other and giving dark looks at Long John Silver. They didn't like that he had let the doctor visit. They didn't trust that he had the real treasure map. And they hated that he was protecting me. The fire burned low. I sat quietly on the ground, trying to listen without being noticed. Then it happened. One of the pirates, George Merry, the loudest and angriest of the group, stood up and called out. Captain Silver. Silver turned his head slowly. He said calmly. You're not captain no more, said Merry. We've had enough. You've betrayed us. Another man stepped forward and dropped a small piece of paper into Silver's hand. It was round and black on one side. The black spot. It was the pirate's sign of judgment, a threat, a warning. A sentence. It meant, you're out, or you're dead. The other pirates watched, waiting. Silver looked at the black spot in his hand. Then he turned it over and read the words written on the back. Deposed, he read aloud. That means you're throwing me out. He smiled. Then he laughed. Fools, he said. You think this changes anything? They didn't speak. Silver threw the paper into the fire and turned to them all. Let me tell you something. While you lot sit here growling, I've been saving your necks. Saving us, someone muttered. Who got you the map? Who kept the boy alive when you wanted to hang him? Who talked to the doctor like a gentleman while you all groaned in the dirt? No one answered. And who still has the treasure in reach, he continued. Me. Long John Silver. He stood taller. You want the treasure? Then follow me. You want to die in the woods? Then throw me out. But make no mistake, without me, you're lost. There was silence. Then someone said, he's right. Another nodded. George Merry growled, but he didn't speak again. Silver had won. Again. He turned to me with a grin. That's how you do it, Jim, he said softly. When the knives come out, talk faster than they can cut. I didn't say a word. I just stared into the fire. Silver had the black spot in his hand, and he had thrown it right back at them. He was still in charge. But the night was far from over. Chapter 30, On Parole. The next morning, the sun rose bright and hot over the island. I sat in the corner of the stockade, sore and tired. The pirates were restless. Some looked sick. Others sat cleaning their weapons or mumbling to themselves. Then we saw Dr. Livesey coming again through the trees. He walked calmly, his medical bag in hand. This time, he came not as a visitor, but as a man with purpose. The pirates stirred. Long John Silver stepped forward to meet him. Welcome, Doctor, Silver said politely. We were just talking about you. The doctor looked around the camp and then at me. I'm here to speak to my patient, he said. And to take a message back. Silver nodded. Speak freely. You're safe here. The doctor turned to me. Jim, you've done a lot of foolish things, he said quietly. But I'm glad to see you alive. I took the ship, I whispered. It's anchored safe. His eyes widened slightly, but he kept a straight face. You'll tell me everything later, he said. Then louder, well, lad, I can't take you with me. Not now. Why not? I asked, shocked. Because we made a deal, he said. Silver has the map. We've given him the right to search for the treasure. In return, we keep peace. So I'm a prisoner, I said. Not quite, said Silver, joining us. You're here on parole, as an honorable guest, not a prisoner. As long as you behave. I looked from one to the other. I didn't like it. But I understood. The doctor and captain were buying time, maybe hoping for a way to stop the pirates once and for all. Silver leaned close. Play along, Jim. Stay alive. The doctor checked the wounded pirates. Some were beyond help. Fever was spreading in the camp. Bad food, worse water, and jungle heat made everything worse. He gave medicine where he could, then packed his bag. Before he left, he looked me in the eye. Be brave, he said softly. We haven't given up. Then he turned and walked back through the trees. I stood alone, surrounded by enemies. But deep inside, I felt something new. Hope. Chapter 31, The Treasure Hunt, Flint's Pointer. The next morning, the pirates were up early. They packed food, shovels, muskets, and the treasure map. Their faces were full of new energy and greed. They laughed and sang as they got ready, they believed the treasure was close. I walked with them. Long John Silver had insisted I stay by his side. You're my hostage, Jim, he said with a grin. And my good luck charm. I said nothing. I didn't know where the doctor or the captain were hiding now. All I knew was this, the pirates had the map, the weapons, and the numbers. But they didn't have the soul. And Silver. Silver was walking a tightrope. One mistake, and even he could fall. We marched into the forest, following the map. The trees grew thick around us. The heat was heavy, and the air smelled of damp earth and leaves. Mosquitoes buzzed in our ears. After some time, we came to a strange place, a clearing where no trees grew. At the center stood a tall, thin tree with bare branches. On one of the branches, something hung down. It was a skeleton, a human body, dried and bleached white by the sun and wind. The bones swung slightly in the breeze, tied to the tree like a sign. The pirates stopped, silent. Even Silver frowned. That's Flint's work, said one of the men in a whisper. That's one of the 6 he killed. Aye, said another. He left this one here to mark the way. The bones were pointing, arms stretched out, as if the dead man himself showed the direction of the treasure. Silver stepped closer. He's pointing straight ahead, he said. That's Flint for you, cruel, but clever. Some of the pirates looked uneasy. This place feels cursed, one of them muttered. But no one turned back. We kept walking. The jungle closed around us again. Vines wrapped around trees. Birds called from far above. The deeper we went, the quieter the pirates became. Even laughter died out. Each man was thinking the same thing. The treasure is close. But so is death. Chapter 32, The Treasure Hunt, The Voice Among the Trees. We kept walking, following the map deeper into the forest. Now the men were completely silent. Their faces were tight. Even Long John Silver stopped whistling. We could feel something strange in the air, as if the island itself was holding its breath. Then, from somewhere among the trees, came a sound. A voice. A horrible voice, high and echoing. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. The pirates froze. One dropped his shovel. The voice was not loud, but it was cold and thin and ghostly, like it came from deep underground. Flint, whispered one of the men. That's Flint's voice. I heard him before, another said, shaking. Just before he killed a man. They looked around in terror. Even Silver turned pale. Stand firm, he shouted. That's no ghost. Flint's dead and buried. That's someone playing tricks. But the men were shaking. Then the voice came again. Darby McGraw. Darby McGraw. Fetch aft the rum, Darby. That had been Captain Flint's last words on his deathbed. Now it sounded like he was calling them from the jungle. That's no living man, said one pirate. No one knows those words but Flint. It's a trap, cried another. We're cursed. The men panicked. But Silver wasn't done. He raised his pistol and stood tall. You cowards, he growled. It's Ben Gunn, I tell you. A poor mad soul playing ghost. There was silence. And then, slowly, the men began to breathe again. "Ben Gunn," one muttered. "That wild man." "Still," said another, "this place feels wrong." "So does your face," snapped Silver. But the fear hadn't fully left them. The spell was broken, for now, but the pirates had heard something they couldn't forget. A voice that shouldn't be alive. Calling from the dark. Chapter 33, The Fall of a Chieftain. We walked through thick trees and hot sun, following Flint's map. Every man was quiet. Even Silver didn't speak much. The strange voice we had heard still haunted the group. Finally, we came to a hill. The map showed this was the place. The treasure should be buried here, under a tall tree with a big shadow. We climbed the hill slowly. When we reached the top, we saw the tree. The pirates rushed forward, shovels in hand, eyes full of gold. But then, they stopped. There was a hole. A big, empty hole. "It's gone," one pirate whispered. The treasure was not there. Only a few coins and bones were left. The men looked at each other in shock. Their faces went pale. "It's a trick," someone yelled. "The map was fake." "Silver lied to us," shouted another. "No." Silver shouted back. "I didn't know. I swear on my life." But they didn't believe him. One pirate raised his gun. Another pointed a knife. "Let's kill him," someone shouted. "He brought us here for nothing." Before anyone could act, shots rang out. From behind the trees, Dr. Livesey, Gray, and Ben Gunn appeared, guns in hand. "Get down," cried the doctor. The pirates panicked. One was hit and fell. The others ran in all directions. In just seconds, the fight was over. Silver stood frozen, looking stunned. "Well," he said softly, "looks like I changed sides just in time." Now the truth came out. Ben Gunn had found the treasure years ago and moved it to a secret cave. When he saw we were coming to the island, he told the doctor everything. That's why the doctor gave the pirates the map. He knew they would find only an empty hole. It had all been a clever trap. The pirates had followed the map. And we had followed them, and beaten them at their own game. That night, we camped safely. Only a few pirates remained, the rest had run or were dead. The treasure was safe. And tomorrow, we would take it home. Chapter 34, and last. The next morning, we went to Ben Gunn's cave. There, hidden deep inside, we saw it. The treasure. Gold coins, silver plates, bars of gold, jewels in wooden boxes, more than we could count. It had been there for years, safe and untouched. We worked hard for days, carrying the treasure back to the Hispaniola. The ship had been repaired by Gray and the doctor. We packed the gold into barrels and chests, loading it carefully. It was enough to make us all rich for life. As we worked, Long John Silver helped. He joked, smiled, and acted polite. But we never forgot who he really was. Finally, we were ready to leave. We left 3 pirates on the island. They had begged for mercy, and the captain decided to spare them, but not take them home. They stayed behind with a bit of food, tools, and a few weapons. That was the best we could offer. Then we set sail. The wind carried us away from Treasure Island. We were going home. But Silver had one last trick. One night, as we slept, he disappeared. He took a small boat and a bag of gold, maybe a few hundred pieces, and vanished into the sea. We never saw him again. Maybe he reached land. Maybe not. But I think he survived. Long John Silver was a pirate, but a clever one. We returned to England months later. The treasure was divided. Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, Captain Smollett, and Gray all took their share. Gray used his to become a shipbuilder, an honest man. The doctor returned to his quiet life. The squire did the same. As for me, Jim Hawkins, I never returned to the sea. The memory of the island, the pirates, and the treasure still comes to me in dreams. And sometimes, I still hear that parrot's voice. Pieces of 8. Pieces of 8. The end.